Hey, how's it going everyone? This is YLAM here. I hope everybody's doing well. In this week's Fuji Friday, we definitely have a diverse group of news to talk about, so let's go ahead and get right into it. The first subject that we're going to talk about is firmware because we got some nice drops, so let's go ahead and get into that. The first one we're going to talk about is the X-T4. It just got a nice beefy firmware for us videographers. It seems like, and I'm going to go ahead and put the firmware up here, it looks like they improved IBIS for movie mode. Now, they didn't go into any detail, so that's something that I'm sure a lot of us YouTubers are going to have a lot of fun testing out because I'm definitely going to be doing the same thing over the weekend. They also fixed some bugs, and one of them keeps coming back, the overexposure bug. I swear this happens to pretty much every Fuji camera. I read about this all the times. It feels like every 6 months I'm reading about an overexposure bug. But this firmware update is definitely for us videographers. I'm really glad Fujifilm is taking this part of the camera seriously and really helping us out by constantly improving those video features. Now, in conjunction with the X-T4 update, they also updated the 16 to 80mm f4 lens, which is a great hybrid lens as well. It's great for photography, it's great for videography, and it looks like they improved the optical image stabilization. Now, I'm thinking this is probably specifically for the X-T4 because when we did our video testings, and a lot of people have commented on this too, is that the X-T4 and the 16 to 80 seem to not work very well together, probably performed the least well when it came to stabilization tests. So this is definitely worth testing out on the X-T4. So I'm looking forward to try to do that over the weekend because it's just kind of fun to do and YouTube just loves these type of videos anyways. Now, since we're on the topic of the X-T4, there is a couple of things I do want to talk about because it has been a pretty hot topic on YouTube, which is the autofocus performance of the X-T4 with the Fuji X lenses. And what we're seeing now is that it kind of varies between lens to lens, and this is something that I've already seen the X-T3, but what we're finding out is the camera bodies have gotten so good, the performance of the X-T4 is so good, is that we're really pushing up against the limitations of the lenses. We're seeing a lot of inconsistencies, and I think what's going on here is there's a lot of technology that's trying to work together, and Fujifilm hasn't really worked out all of the bumps to it or figured out how to actually make all of it work very smoothly. This is something that I hope that they can fix in firmware, but there could be a hardware limitation to the lenses that's really preventing us from getting the most out of our Fuji X-T4 while using autofocus or some of the other features in the X-T4. Now, this is something that I'm definitely speculating on because I'm not an engineer at Fujifilm, nor do I ever want to be, but it's something that I wish Fujifilm would kind of address, telling us what the roadmap is for video lenses, or are these lenses that were designed for photography ever going to get improvements to the point where they're going to be really good for video? Because as these camera body and the technology for these camera bodies continue to get better, we're just going to continue to push up to these limitations, and it's going to be very apparent as we make videos. And YouTube's really good at pointing out limitations to cameras because that's what we do on YouTube. The last talking point that I want to talk about before we move on to the next subject is as we use all of these autofocus features, it's really become apparent that how we use autofocus in photography and how we use autofocus in videography are kind of diverging. So we really need a separation on how we control autofocus between these two types of uses for the Fujifilm camera system. We've already seen with the X-T4 that the menu systems for movie mode continues to grow. It was pretty good for the X-T3, but it's really vastly improving for the X-T4, and I feel like it's just going to continue to grow with each new X camera body. There's just going to be more features in there, more refined controls, and I feel like autofocus is definitely one of those where they need to separate them out. For photography, it's definitely about speed and accuracy, but for videography, it's more about consistency and accuracy. It's slightly different, but it's different enough to where I think they could actually separate out how the logic for autofocus works for each system, and they might be better off that way. The next topic to talk about is more firmware, but this one is for the GFX camera, which is excellent because we've been waiting for this firmware update for quite a while now. There has been a lot of rumors around this firmware update, and there has been some really significant advancements, especially for the GFX 100. If you own a 50 camera, there's definitely some enhancements that you're going to get, but not as significant as the GFX 100. So if you own a GFX camera, you're going to be seeing some more film simulation, some more effects. You're also getting a tethering shooting mode, which is great because the GFX 100 is definitely made for studio shooting. If you're a product photographer, portrait photography, that tether mode is going to be amazing for you because it just simplifies life so much. So definitely a lot to gain over there. As I said before, the GFX 100 is definitely the one that got the biggest bang for the buck. So it got improvements in autofocus in low light, which is something that we saw in the X-T4, and it looks like the GFX 100 is going to be inheriting that. There was also gimbal and drone support added in, and the biggest one of them all, and indie filmmakers, cinematographers are really going to love this, but it looks like we're going to get raw video output to specifically an Atomos Ninja 5, and it's only for that specific external recorder, but they picked a really good one because the Atomos Ninja 5 is definitely one of the fan favorites. It's very capable, it's also very affordable, and from everything that I've heard, it's a real workhorse of an external video recorder. I think that was an excellent choice in terms of external video recorders, and it's going to make a lot of videographers very happy. Now, there are two concerns that I do want to talk about before moving on to the next subject. The first one is these GFX lenses. Are they going to be good for video, specifically autofocus, taking advantage of that phase detect autofocus in the GFX 100? Because as we've seen in the crop sensor X mount line, we're really bumping up against a lot of lenses in terms of their limitations. Are we going to be seeing the same thing in the GFX line with these lenses? Because they probably started R&Ding these lenses way before they thought they were going to get this intense into video. So a lot of these lenses might be purpose-built for just photography, and then they kind of revamp them for videography. Are we going to be seeing a lot of limitations once again once we start advancing down the GFX camera bodies, in which we're really going to see some advanced autofocus, and then all of a sudden we bump into the same problem of limitations of the lens, in which it just doesn't work very well, and we actually do still need to have dedicated video lenses for the GFX system. And if Fujifilm is going to be willing to spend that R&D money to flush out a videography line for the GFX system. And this kind of brings me up to the second point, which is for the 50 megapixel models, which are 2 to 3 years old now, can't really remember exactly. I think we really do need to see a Mark II version of those camera bodies that really bump up the video capabilities of those two camera bodies. That way they would be willing to spend some R&D money making video lenses for that format. The last topic to talk about, and this is an interesting one, but Fujifilm's just published an article telling you how they're going to be updating the ambassador program. So this is for anyone who wants to be an ex-photographer. So someone that's really deeply associated with Fujifilm's, the company itself. We see this in pretty much all of the big brand camera manufacturers. In fact, I would say Canon really does this at an elite level. That's why they have such hardcore advocates for their camera system, and it's definitely one of the reasons why their users are so loyal to the Canon brand. But let's go ahead and jump right into this. It looks like they're really trying to be transparent on how you can actually work through the tiers to become a Fuji X photographer. Now, the last tier, they call it the X photographer still, but they're definitely wanting to include videographers. If you read through the article, it is separated into 3 tiers. So we have collaborator, we have creator, and then the X photographer. And it seems like if you read through each of the tiers, there's definitely a place where you can find a niche in each one of those and really thrive in. So this is something that I would definitely be interested in reading up on when it actually comes live in August, to see kind of what the limitations are for each of the tiers and what you can or cannot do. So one of the big things about joining this type of program is you definitely want to read the legalese on this stuff, because there are going to be some things that you can and cannot do, and the further down the tiers you go, the more limited you are on doing certain things like using other brands' camera systems or gear. But that's something that's very normal. Now, I know a lot of you are very enthusiastic about your Fujifilm camera systems. Some of you are just starting off on your journey as a professional on this. So if you're really loyal to the Fujifilm's brand, you definitely want to check this out and be informed on this. And if you think this is something that's for you, what you really want to do is you want to go ahead and start your plan right now on how you can actually work your way up through all of the tiers don't read about it in August and then start making your plan. As the old saying goes, the early bird catches the worm. But one thing I do want to caution you on again is you definitely want to read the legalese on this if you're going to be signing something, because if you look at the tier and all of a sudden it restricts you from doing something. I'm just going to give you an example, and this is something that I've ran into from other loyalty programs or evangelist programs, as some of the other industries would call it, would be you can say all of the good things you want, but they kind of want you to be mellowed out on any of the criticisms. They won't forbid you from doing it, but it'll definitely discourage you from doing it. So if it discourages me from doing it, for example, you know, I could say the Fujifilm system is awesome, the X-T4 is definitely awesome, love the battery life, blah, 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 blah. But you know what? Their smartphone app, the one that they actually have, it's trash. You really can't use it for any type of videography. The app is useless to you. They definitely need another smartphone app for us videographers with video capable features for that smartphone app, because the one that was built for photography is just not getting the job done. If I can't say something in terms of that type of criticism, they discourage that type of criticism, then that's something that you need to be aware of. But I'm definitely digressing on a made-up example. We're going to have to wait until August to see what it really looks like, and I'll definitely readdress this topic and give you what I think about the new ambassador program. But it's really interesting. Definitely go out there, read about it if you're an enthusiast of the Fujifilm system. That's all the news topics that I have to cover for this week. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you have a great weekend. Please stay safe, and I'll see you in the next video.